This is you, and this is a girl you like. How do you get her number or contact information? That's what we'll learn in today's video, and I will give you a perfect technique to approach a girl that guarantees you a yes response every time. As we discussed earlier in the series on how to attract women, it's important to stay calm in all situations. If you're relaxed before you approach someone, things usually go well. But if you're nervous, you might seem less confident, which can lead to rejection. For those who've never been to a club or tried talking to a woman in social settings, getting into the right mindset can be tough. Just thinking about approaching a girl might make you anxious. The best way to overcome this fear is to take action. So, should you go out and start approaching women? Yes, but start small. Don't jump into full conversations yet. Instead, approach 10 women each day and simply ask them for the time. That's all. Make sure you're not wearing a watch, and if you have a cell phone, turn it off. This simple exercise can boost your confidence. After a few days, you'll notice you feel more at ease. Set your own goals and plan accordingly. Choose the right places. Asking for the time in nightclubs might not be the best idea. Opt for calmer spots like parks, malls, or coffee shops. It's also helpful to do this exercise a few minutes before you plan to start talking more. It boosts your confidence and makes you feel more comfortable approaching women. By getting a target, I mean to find a woman you'd like to talk to. If you're new to approaching women, it's a good idea to avoid nightclubs at first. Going to a nightclub without much experience can lead to disappointment. Many guys try to meet women at bars and clubs, get rejected, and then feel discouraged from trying again. The main problems with nightclubs are high competition. Many other guys are trying to do the same thing. Defensive attitudes. Women might be on guard because they're approached frequently. Loud music. It's hard to have a conversation over the noise. Instead, consider other places that might be better for beginners. Hobby classes like yoga, salsa dancing, or aerobics are great options. These places often have many women and few men, giving you more chances to practice without much competition. You can also try places like restaurants, coffee shops, public libraries, or malls. There are plenty of options if you think about it. Once you've picked a place, find a woman you'd like to approach. This is your target. Approaching a woman who is with a group can be harder than approaching someone who is alone, but don't worry too much about that. Just choose someone you'd like to talk to. Here's an important tip. Make your approach within 5 seconds of deciding to do so. Why? Because the longer you wait, the more likely your brain will come up with excuses not to. You might talk yourself out of it and let insecurities take over. The more you hesitate, the more nervous you'll become, and you might end up not approaching at all. And now, let's move on to one of the most important steps in today's video. Do you know one of the major reasons why a lot of guys get turned down when they first approach a woman? It's because they don't know the right way to approach. Let's take a typical case here. What would an average guy do when he approaches a girl? He first stares at her, then starts walking up to her, and as soon as he reaches her, he says something like, "Hi, I am Fred. Can I buy you a drink?" At this, the girl goes, "My boyfriend is standing over there." Fred turns and walks away. Now, did she really have a boyfriend? Maybe or maybe not, but it sure was a good excuse to get rid of Fred. Women who regularly go out always get thousands of such men approaching them on a regular basis. You see, none of these approaches will ever work since women are strongly programmed to turn down every approach of this kind. Furthermore, girls automatically assume that any guy who approaches them this way is only looking for casual sex and nothing else. And even worse, there are guys who have a large collection of those witty pickup lines and regularly try them, thinking that would help them pick up any girl. But guess what? These are the type of guys who get turned down the most. You see, the key to approaching a female successfully is to get her comfortable in your presence before you move on to other things. Why? Because as long as you try too hard to get her, she will always sense that you're onto something fishy, and she will put up her wall of defense before you can even think of anything. It will get to a point where she would do almost anything to get rid of you. Therefore, it is very important to get her comfortable in your presence. So how does one do that? Well, first of all, you must work on how you approach the female. Here are some very important keys you must take into consideration. 1. Never approach her from the front where she can see you coming. This is a very common mistake most newbies tend to make regularly. If she can see you charging towards her, she will know that you are coming her way, and she will put up her wall of resistance even before you say your first words. 2. Never approach her from behind. This is another huge mistake guys make regularly. There are a lot of guys who approach the girl from behind by either slightly touching her on the shoulder or starting the conversation without notice. This always scares them, and they will instantly avoid you. This can completely ruin your chances of ever picking up women. Therefore, always keep in mind never to approach a woman from behind. So how should one approach her? You should always approach her from the side. This is by far the best way and will will always get you the most success. An approach from the side does not scare her, and also she can't really see you coming right towards her, so she doesn't put the wall of defense up. A good way of doing this is to walk past her and just tilt your head in her direction and start the conversation. However, make sure your chest is facing the other direction. That means talking over your shoulder. This is a very non-threatening posture, and she will be very comfortable when you talk to her in this position. The next part is starting a conversation, and this is the most crucial element. So how does one start the conversation? As we have already discussed above, direct approaches never work. Therefore, in order to start conversations, you have to act in a manner that demonstrates that you aren't trying to hit on them. Here is a very common opener I regularly use. In order to do this, you must use your cell phone and pretend that you are talking to someone. As you spot a woman you would like to approach, just pass by her as usual. Look over your shoulder and pause a little. Then, holding the phone next to your ear, say, "Oh, here's someone. Let me ask her." Then say, "My friend here on the phone says girls lie more than men. Is that true?" Her, "No, I feel men lie more than women." Then hang up the phone and say, "I am in a hurry, but my friend said never to trust anything a female says. Half the time she would be lying." Her, "I totally disagree." Then say, "Yeah, I mean, it can't apply to all females." And this is where you have successfully opened your conversation, and now you have her attention. It's important that you say that you are in a hurry and have to go. You see, the reason why you must say this is because now she knows that you won't hang around too long, which lowers her defenses, and at the same time, you demonstrate high value. But there are some things you have to be careful about here. A lot of guys try canned openers, which might or might not work in all situations. There are guys who are so strict on theory that they would only use the lines they memorized without observing what the female is actually doing. For example, I have come across many guys who would just stop some random girl in a hurry and say, "Hey, do girls lie more than men?" And mostly they get either no response or total avoidance, simply because most guys don't really observe what the girl is doing at the point of approach. You should always work according to the environment and never rely solely on canned openers. You see, the best way to open conversations is to be as natural as possible. For example, imagine you are at a restaurant and you see a pretty girl sitting across the room. Now, a good approach in this situation would be to go up to her and ask her about what she is eating or drinking. Something like this. You, "Hey, what is it that you're eating?" Her, "Oh, this is XYZ dish." You, "I'm new to this place and can't really figure out what to order. I think I should order this dish. Is there anything else you can suggest?" Her, "Oh yeah, also try blah blah." You see how easy it was to open the conversation again? Now, a common question most guys have is, what if she is in some neutral environment and I can't really find much to open with? Well, in that case, you should observe what she's wearing and comment on that. Here's an example. You, "That's a pretty interesting bracelet you have on. What's the story behind that?" Her, she would give some response. You, "Yeah, it caught my attention. That's why I asked you about it. By the way, I'm John." Her, "Hi, I'm Jen." And you see how easy it is? Another great way to open any conversation successfully is to never ask a question, but to guess it. This means instead of asking her, "What do you do?" or "Where do you come from?" just guess it instead. For example, you, "Are you from California?" Her, "No. What makes you say that?" You, "Well, you have the Californian look about you." Her, "What do you mean?" You, "Well, look at the way you're dressed. I have a friend who dresses exactly like you, and she is from California too. All you guys tend to dress like Barbie dolls. Why is that?" And the conversation is successfully opened again. It doesn't really matter what you ask her, but it's fine as long as it is a guess or assumption. She will always have that "why do you say that" line, and that will help you open a conversation successfully. And by the way, if this video reaches 4,000 likes, I will leave in the first comment a document containing 26 examples of openers you can use. Usually most guys feel lost after opening because of not knowing what to say next. After some time, there comes that awkward silence where the girl thinks, "Okay, here is this going? This is probably the hardest part of the whole deal. The hotter the woman, the harder it would be to get her interested. It's pretty easy to open conversations, but it's hard to take it to the next level. Unless you know how to further transition the conversation into sparking strong emotional attraction, you are only building up casual talk and nothing else. When it comes to getting her interested, I want you to apply everything you've learned with me in this series. The qualifying technique, the listen like a therapist technique, body language, the push and pull technique, mystery, tell her a bit and leave her begging for more. Everything you've learned with me since the day I started this series. But there's one technique I haven't talked about before, and I want you to listen to me carefully and to pay close attention to it. Talk to your target's friend more than the target. This works really well when you're approaching women in groups. Normally, most guys pay a lot of attention towards the girl they originally targeted and tend to ignore the rest of the group. This would actually work against you, since this makes it obvious to the target that you are interested in her. You should rather spend more time on the target's friends. This will make the girl you are targeting feel a bit jealous because you are not giving her much attention. But the good part is, she will get more curious curious now since you are making her work for your attention. Here is an example. Consider being around a group of girls. Say this to your target: "Hey, are they your friends?" She would say, "Yes, they are." Then you should say, "Be a good girl. Introduce me." She will most probably introduce you to some of her friends. You should instantly start talking more to one of her friends and completely avoid her for a few minutes. After a few minutes, you will see your target working extra hard to get your attention, which also means she is now curious about you. Physical touch is an extremely important aspect of getting her attracted to you. When you say something from a distance, it won't make that much of an impact. But when you say something with a bit of playful physical touch, its impact will double. Here are some super easy routines you can use to easily touch her. Stare at her hands, then grab her fingers and say, "Oh, nice nails, but I think they would look better in pink nail polish." Stare at her forehead. Say, "You have something on your forehead." She would say, "Oh, what?" Then do a slight clean up with your fingers and say, "Okay, all clean now." Stare at her hair. Say, "Wow, nice color," or "How did you get it curly like that? Is this real hair?" Then touch it. And a very common way of doing it is giving a girl a high five. Say something like, "You are cool just like me. We will make a great team. Give me a high five." And then give her a gentle high five. If a girl lets you touch her once, she has already put her defenses down, and now she will let you further escalate into more intense physical things like hugging, kissing, etc. If you've done everything else correctly, getting her phone number should be straightforward. Once you've had a good conversation with her, transition into sharing an interesting story. While telling the story, you might say something like, "Oh, I just noticed something interesting about you." Then continue with your story. She might ask what you noticed, but keep her curious by telling her you'll share after you finish the story. When the story ends, she'll likely ask you again about what you noticed. At that point, check the time and say, "Oh, I'm running late. I have to go." Hand her your phone and say, "Here, enter your number. I'll tell you what I noticed and share something else with you later." Often, she'll enter her number because she's interested in continuing the conversation. By handing her your phone, you also ensure you get the correct number. You can even give her a quick call to confirm. In case she gave you the wrong number, say, "Oh, playing, aren't we?" She would most probably say, "Oh, sorry, I gave you the wrong number by mistake. Let me do it again." At this, say, "Nah, never mind. I don't want it. It was great meeting you," and walk off. In case she totally refuses to give you her number, then you have done something wrong or not built enough attraction yet. In this case, say, "Come on, giddy up. I don't have much time here." If she still refuses, then say a friendly goodbye and walk off. That's right. Don't wait a single second more. Just walk off. Always remember that in order to make her give you the phone number, you should always provide a motive. In case you don't have good stories to tell or can't think about any stories to get her interested, just come up with other motives which would persuade her to give you the number. For example, say something like, "My friends are having this party on Saturday. It's one of the coolest events, which happens only once a year. I have free passes, you should come." Then hand her your phone again and say, "Here, punch in your number. I'll let you know the timings." When you ask her randomly for a phone number by saying, "Can I have your phone number?" you will always get put down. Or even if you do end up getting some phone numbers, the girl will not remember you after a few days simply because you didn't create enough attraction for her to remember you. It's important that the moment you get her phone number, you exit the venue. You don't want to bump into her again, as that would just make it a bit awkward. At the same time, all the work you did in creating attraction might reverse. And with that, we've come to the end of the video. If you have any issues, let me know in the comments so I can know what to talk about in the next video. This was The Dark Needle, and see you next time.
If you care about me at all, you should focus on your problems, not putting the blame on me. So I won't pick up your call, I don't wanna talk about it. You know that we disagree.